So recently, Epic Games announced that they would be doing layoffs. They say that this is due to decreasing revenue coming from Fortnite, but also the astronomical costs of their multi-year legal war with Apple. If you don't know what happened, Epic tried to create a backdoor payment system on iPhones, and that's against Apple's policy for their Apple Store. Any app that goes through the store has to give Apple a 30% cut of every cent they make, even from microtransactions. Obviously, Epic didn't like this, so they tried to bypass it. And when they got caught, Apple kicked them off the App Store, basically cutting them off from over 1 billion devices in the world. Feeling wronged, Epic sued them, saying that Apple was effectively running a monopoly with their walled garden approach to their hardware. This legal battle lasted multiple years with many appeals, but ultimately the courts decided that actually Apple is not a monopoly, but they did have to allow apps to create their own third party payment methods, bypassing the 30% gatekeeper tax. Now, while this hasn't fully healed Epic's finances, it set a massive legal precedence. And remember, lawsuits don't exist in isolation. If Epic won the right to bypass a platform holder's cuts, that theoretically applies to everyone. And this brings us to Microsoft. We've seen Xbox recently pivoting into a third publisher while still trying to maintain their business. In fact, they become the largest video game publisher on the PlayStation. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, Sony is crushing them in hardware sales. And as Xbox moves its heavy hitters to PlayStation, they're forced to hand over 30% of every sale to their direct competitor. There are no negotiations. Even if Microsoft is the largest publisher on PlayStation, Sony is still the one getting rich off of their labor. But what if Xbox used the Epic precedence? If third party developers are legally allowed to create backdoor payment systems on digital stores in the US, Xbox could technically bypass Sony's 30% cut. And if you look internationally, specifically at the EU, Xbox has an even better chance of bypassing their 30% tax. Because in the EU, they recently passed the Digital Markets Act, which not only allows you to create third party payment systems, but full on third party app stores within the hardware devices of other companies. The law explicitly requires gatekeepers to allow third-party apps on their devices. Now, Microsoft has already hinted at an Xbox mobile store for the iPhone in the EU, but they've been dragging their feet on that one. And given the fact that it was announced by Sarah Bond and she is out, we don't know how long that will take or if it will end up following through in the end. But the Digital Markets Act doesn't just apply to Apple. PlayStation is a digital gatekeeper. In the EU, at least, we could realistically see a future where the Xbox Store exists as an app on the PlayStation dashboard. Now, I've been thinking about this for a while. And a few years ago, I would have thought that this probably would have been a death sentence for consoles. Traditionally, Sony and Microsoft sold their hardware at a loss and made their money back through that 30% cuts as well as through the video games that they sold. If you took away the store monopoly, they'd probably have no reason to make the hardware. But that model is dead. This generation, we've seen extreme price increases for consoles, even in their late life cycle. Sony was quick to raise prices internationally, proving they aren't interested in subsidizing your gaming anymore. They are making a profit on the hardware itself. While they might claim memory and RAM costs are the reason, we don't get to see their bulk buy contracts. They could easily be skimming off the top, adding in a little bit of extra profit for themselves, and we would never know. But what we do know is that they are definitely profitable hardware makers. The store monopoly is no longer a requirement for their survival. Now, obviously, Sony wouldn't like the competition, but they would survive it. Fortunately, this change doesn't look like it will be limited to just the EU. The UK is looking into similar legislation, and even Japan, Sony's home turf, is exploring digital market regulations. Xbox has historically failed to break into Japan with hardware, but maybe they could break in with a store. And that is a completely different game, pun intended. Now, I know Microsoft currently wants to focus on AI, but Epic has already bitten the hardest bullets. They fought the legal battles, they cleared the path, and there is a massive door open for Xbox to stop being a guest on other platforms and start being a competitor on their own terms. If Xbox can put their store on PlayStation, we might finally see real competition in the console space, not just over who has the best plastic box, but who has the better service. But that's just my thoughts. What do you think? Is an Xbox store on the PS5 an inevitability or just a pipe dream? Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe for more deep dives like this.